Hi all and welcome to the Patreon channel. Today I want to share a short tale of the last Chinese emperor, a man known simply as Puyi. Puyi came to power just shy of his third birthday in 1908, after his predecessor, the Guangzhou Emperor Zetian, died unexpectedly. Zetian had around 2,000 times the normal level of arsenic in him, so one can guess the cause. Puyi himself was deposed following the Xinhai Revolution just 4 years later. The people wanted increased representation with less foreign encroachment. The crown wanted to sell the railways to overseas investors and rule with an iron fist. Things escalated. For most of his life, Puyi was kept like a bird in a gilded cage. Kept in luxury in palatial surroundings, but without the freedom to go where he chose. He was a cruel, capricious bird who made the lives of the royal eunuchs miserable. For 12 days in July 1917, he was restored to the throne by the warlord Xiang Jun. But for this tale's sake, let's imagine him there, a prisoner of fate and circumstance. Somewhat nicer than he really was. Puyi had a learned tutor named Reginald Johnston. Johnston was a diplomat who served as the last British commissioner of the treaty port of Weihai Wei in the north of the country. Later in his life, Johnston wrote a book, Twilight in the Forbidden City, which was adapted into a movie, The Last Emperor. Peter O'Toole played him on the big screen. Now, Johnston taught the captive emperor a great many things about the world outside, but the one thing that most enraptured Puyi was the telephone. Now, we currently live in a world where new technology has a crazy fast uptake. Perhaps everyone's grandma has a tablet or smartphone. By 1921, telephones were still largely an odd device owned by very few, still decades after its invention. As such, it was still very much a shiny new toy. As with many teens, the last emperor insisted on getting the shiny new toy, to the consternation of his handlers. "But, Your Majesty, the palace has never had a telephone before," they said. "Bringing in such Western technology will upset the celestial balance," they pleaded. Unironically, surrounded by Swiss cuckoo clocks, under electric light bulbs, and down the hall from a grand piano. But Puyi dug in his heels and fought like hell over this. A phone was going in, and so it was the last emperor ended his splendid isolation from the world. But what did he do with this newfound freedom? Did he place diplomatic phone calls to world leaders? Well, no. Enter into a romantic courtship with some forbidden love? Well, apparently not. Negotiate a book deal? Not a chance. He spent his time making countless prank phone calls to anyone else unlucky enough to also own a phone in China. His pranks were hardly comedic gold. He took to ringing the Chinese opera singer Yang Xiaolu and giggling uncontrollably when he answered. He regularly ordered expensive meals from restaurants, pretending to be other people, and sending them out cash on delivery to strangers' houses. And though not a prank, he regularly called Reginald Johnston at all hours to ask a question or to complain about something someone else did in the palace that upset him. I hoped at least for an "is your fridge running" gag, but not a chance. A few years later, he used his phone to plot an escape with the Dutch ambassador. Unfortunately for him, the plot was rumbled. Emperor Puyi married in 1922. He was exiled to another gilded cage when the warlord Feng Yujiang took over Beijing in 1924. From 1932 to 1945, he was the puppet ruler of the Japanese in a state called Manchukuo, largely in Manchuria. Throughout the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II, he called for the people to support Japan. After the war, he spent time in jail for war crimes and spent his final years living in an ordinary house in communist Beijing with his sister. In old age, people commented he'd become humble, kind, and considerate. I have no word on whether he had a phone installed in his sister's place, or what he may have done with it.